Tom and Review. What I'm looking at today is 2011's The Green Hornet, directed by Michel Gondry. Michel Gondry is a French director. His name translates to Michael, but in French it's Michel. And this is not a great movie. And the press around this movie indicated that it was a hellish shoot for everyone concerned. Some say that the problem was that Gondry never worked on something this size before. It had a $120 million budget, which in 2011 is nothing to sneeze at. Though, having seen it, I don't think the problem is necessarily how it was directed, which is oftentimes in a very interesting manner. Gondry is known for a lot of shorts, actually, and some movies like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, a few others that aren't coming to mind right now. Working on something as big as The Green Hornet stifled him somewhat, which is a pity. Though the greatest problem with the movie, as I said, is not his direction, not the acting. Seth Rogen, believe it or not, is fine as the Green Hornet. Jay Chow is pretty good, though oddly emotionless as Kato. The problem of this movie is primarily in the writing, which was by Seth Rogen and Ethan Goldberg, his production partner. Because this movie doesn't know what it wants to be necessarily. And it's based on the Green Hornet, but it aims for a more comedic slant, which is a pity because if you're familiar with the Green Hornet, the radio shows, or one of the 2 or 3 television shows based on the character, the one I'm referring to ran from 1966 to 1967, it was done very seriously. And in fact, it was a spin-off from the Batman television show, which ran 1 year longer, from 1966 to 1968. In the 1966 Green Hornet series, I haven't yet seen an explanation for Kato. He's just there, played by Bruce Lee, by the way, who kicks ass. In the 2011 movie, Kato is treated as if he's some kind of god, in the sense that he builds the cars, he fights with almost extrasensory perception. It's too much, and I get it that they didn't want to create a Kato that was a manservant, kind of like he was in the 1966 series, but they overcompensated. This Kato, the first thing I thought of while watching him is, why is he working as a manservant for Britt Reed's father? This man is an inventive genius. The fact that he is acting as a manservant to Britt Reed's father, and later Britt Reed himself when his father dies in the 2011 movie, is more demeaning than anything from the 1966 show. So that's a problem. Another issue is that the 2011 movie has a serious case of the no games. In the 1966 series, there was no explanation given, at least that I'm aware of yet, for why Kato is with Britt Reed. And that's really not great. They need to bring depth to these characters. But at the same time, having Britt Reed, Seth Rogen, and Kato, Jay Chow, competing for the same woman just so we cannot appear to be gay is silly. And I know this movie was made in 2011, but still, personally, I would have rather had the 2 characters be gay than this silly stuff about competing against each other for the same woman. It's just kind of old hat. And it's worth mentioning that Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg are behind shows like Preacher, movies like This Is the End, The Boys. And if you're a fan of The Boys, you should watch The Green Hornet, if only to see how they evolved as writers and producers. A subplot of 2011's The Green Hornet revolves around Britt Reed being jealous of Kato and his extreme capability to do virtually everything, but swim, strangely enough. And that's kind of silly too, because it's fairly obvious that Kato is more proficient in everything in this movie, apparently, than Brett Reed is. He doesn't have to like it, but at the same time, the silliness that they go through in facing that fact is just kind of dumb and a waste of energy. And that goes to what I was saying. It may have been a very difficult project to finally complete, but its greatest problem is in its writing. It's in the ill-fitting humor. It's in the silly sexual innuendo. It's trying to make something comedic that the source material is not. And as I said, it's very much, if you took the 1966 series and compared it to the 2011 movie, it's like Batman Begins versus Batman and Robin. One is very interesting, dark, and just very well executed. The other is flamboyant, not terribly interesting, very well executed, but not at all what these characters are like. And I honestly would not mind to see more of the Green Hornet. He's always been one of my favorite characters. In my mind, he's like the Question, if you recall the DC character, which I think it was originally a Charlton character, but DC purchased them and just used their characters. These type of gumshoe superheroes wearing little more than a mask with all the accoutrements that many superheroes tend to have really fascinate me. And I wish this movie had done more to be like the 1966 series. For instance, they could have had an entire training montage of Brett Reed whipping himself into shape, because Seth Rogen is pretty active in this movie, shockingly so in fact. But you never actually see him working out. You never actually see him improving himself to be better. 2011's Green Hornet is not an unwatchable movie by any stretch of imagination, and it has some generally funny moments. Seth Rogen and Ethan Goldberg, they're the weak link in this chain, and why this movie does not work particularly well. Though as I said, it is watchable. Some of the jokes land, most of them don't, and it's worth watching, particularly if you're a fan of things like Preacher, The Boys, whatever else Rogen and Goldberg have done, if only to see where they came from, potentially where they're going in the future. This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com in a review. Do you agree, disagree? Let me know down below. And as usual, consider a like or a follow. Peace.